Welcome to the Chuan podcast. My name is Isaac Kamens. This is a bi-weekly podcast where my friend Jess O'Brien and I discuss internal martial arts, Qigong, and meditation. This week we continue our discussion from Liang's book on the second and third generations of the Yang family. Then we continue our look at the 8 energies of Tai Chi Chuan from Bruce Frantzis's book, The Power of Internal Martial Arts. We look at the last 4 energies of Tai Chi Chuan. And in this week's Patreon episode, we continue our look at the Ludong Bin 100 character tablet with verse 10 from Baiwa's book. Also, just a reminder to check out the Patreon. If you join up, you can get bonus episodes as well as extended episodes, which run somewhere between 10 and 30 minutes longer than the public episodes. So check that out. We also have interviews with friends and people that we've trained with and stuff. So give that a listen. Thanks again for all your support. Take care of yourselves and enjoy the episode.
In today's episode, we're going to return to Tai Chi Chuan for Health and Self-Defense, Philosophy and Practice by Master T.T. Liang. Publication date, 1974.
You're
almost
born.
Yeah, that's year you're born, huh?
Yep.
So he's not going into Master T.T. Liang much. We're going to take a look at some of the last of the stories he has in here, because I feel like some of his stories are some of the best. So we start off with Yang-style Tai Chi master Yang Banho, the son of Old Master Yang. Old Master Yang Luchan's eldest son, Yang Banho, was born in 1837. When he was young, he began to learn Tai Chi from his father. Each day he practiced unceasingly, diligently, and painstakingly. His father would not allow him to rest, even for a short time. And in addition, he endured the intolerable pain of being flogged with a whip by his father until he was on the point of running away from home. He was literally whipping him with a whip. His temper was irritable and violent. He was very no wonder. You're being literally
Go figure.
Go figure. Train harder. He was very proficient in freehand techniques, which I think is the term Sanshou, freehand.
Yeah.
And he enjoyed knocking down his opponents. As soon as he would stretch out his hand, blood would immediately appear from their bodies, and some of them would be thrown more than 30 feet away. When Banho was in the prime of young manhood, he once engaged in a match against a famous Shaolin teacher who was very daring and had considerable power. He grasped Banho's wrist and would not let it loose. Banho, using a sudden sharp burst of energy, applied it to the body of the Shaolin teacher. The latter could not stand it and was pushed over. Banho, elated, returned home to give a detailed account to his father. While Yang Luchan heard the story, he laughed and said, "You're happy because you won, but alas, your sleeve has been torn. Can this be called the use of intrinsic energy in Tai Chi Chuan?"
Right. So that's the second time we've heard that story.
Right, so right. This one, made a big impression.
That one. Yeah.
Right. Banho looked down at his sleeve and saw that it had indeed been torn. He became downcast and withdrew.
Oh.
So it's his father's a total dick to him, basically.
Got depressed after his dad shit on him.
Right. And the poor guy's training his ass off. So he's always known as sort of the mean one who used the harsh techniques. And that sounds like Yang Luchan, his father, had a harsh side to him, even though in last episode we heard how he did save his opponents from death repeatedly and didn't hurt him much. It sounds like he treated his son really bad.
Well, I think there was that, pressure to make your son as good as you were to keep up the legacy, right? And
right.
Sounds like he pushed them for a little too hard, maybe.
Right.
And then with the second son, didn't push quite so hard,
So what technique did he use? The Shaolin teacher grabbed his wrist, and then Banho used a sudden sharp burst of energy to the body.
Who knows?
That sounds like G.
Sounds like G to me.
To the body, right? The guy grabbed him, he blocked the side, and boom.
Yeah.
And sent him flying back, of course.
Well, and Banho is he's the small frame, right? So he's
small frame Tai Chi, close in.
Short kind of, burst power. So I think maybe it's reference
indicative of his close range power. Yeah. And so the guy held on and the rip that had the strength to hold on to his sleeve as he went tumbling back.
Mm.
And again, the Shaolin versus Tai Chi that keeps coming up. No, the beef. All right, so the next story is Yang Banho then began to practice Tai Chi more diligently than ever before, and his techniques gradually reached a very high level. It is a pity that he did not wish to transmit his art to many disciples. He was like a singer with a very high vocal range who could find few to sing in tune with him.
Mm.
So eventually his art became extinct. He died in 1892. So that's 8 years before the Boxer Rebellion. The second son has already passed away. That's reminding me that Tai Chi's a little older than Bagua, quite a bit older.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bagua is more like the newest martial art. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so, like Baiwa lists Banho as one of Wu Chuan's teachers.
Mm.
And
the Wu style Tai Chi does carry on some of
and
Banho.
There's if you go to Brennan translation, there's a thing in there that he did, which is a comparison of Banho's handwritten or his manual with that gold book Wu style thing, and they're
by Wu Jianchuan.
By Wu Jianchuan, and they're basically identical. And it says in the beginning that it was that Banho gave Wu Jianchuan this manual at some point, or maybe one of his other students did. But that he got this, and it's so I'm pretty sure that the small frame that became the Wu style is the Yang that came from Banho,
because he was known for that, right? So yeah, right. That would make sense. The shape,
and there was also this is that idea that while Wu did learn from his father, most of the time you don't learn from your parents,
right?
Because it's just not the most.
Banho would be like his cousin, so the elder cousin, kind of older, bigger, tougher cousin who's a badass fighter. You want to roll with him. That's the guy you're gonna get beat up by and just hang out with. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
But so he says it became extinct here. And that recalls to me one of the guys from my book, Gabriel Chin. He made a point of it when I was talking to. He just dismissively said, "And we're not from that Yang Cheng Fu side. Our side is from Yang Banho, not like all these other guys who say they are, but we really are." So I was like, there is in the Tai Chi community a little bit of like, Yang Banho is the badass. I want to claim that.
Yeah, I've said this before that that's how you, whether it's true or not, if you say you're a Banho school, that's implying that you're more on the martial side of things.
I'm willing to fight, or at least push hands.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of that is kind of bullshit anyway, because who knows, but really it's getting to frames, small frame, large frame, medium frame, and that I think that what generally got popularized were the medium and large frame Tai Chi, and the small frame has always been sort of the rarest, because what was the small frame is now the Wu, pretty much now the Wu style. So in a sense, he's right when he says Banho's Yang style is not a thing anymore, because it's not called the Yang style anymore. It's the Wu style, right? So it's kind of.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, that definitely. Yeah, there's trends there involved. Yeah. So now T.T. Liang talks about old master Yang Luchan's second son, Jianho. He's known as more the friendlier one of the two.
Right. This is Yang Cheng Fu's father.
Right. Like his brother, he began learning Tai Chi from his father at an early age. His father supervised his training with such severity that he was compelled to practice for an entire day without being allowed to rest even a little while. He became so utterly wearied in body and mind that he could hardly stand. Several times he attempted to hang himself, but each time he was discovered and rescued. We can see that it was his spirit of enduring hardship at that time that enabled him to make a famous name for himself later on. His disposition was much milder than that of his elder brother Banho, so he had many students. In all, he taught 3 different types of postures: higher, middle, and lower. His soft and hard energies in perfect coordination, he achieved the great consummation, and his art reached a very high level. When he engaged in combat with experts from other schools who were proficient in using knife or sword, he used only a wooden feather duster to defeat them. As soon as he raised his hand, the opponent's hand would invariably be held fast, so that it was put into a disadvantageous position, unable to approach. He could also make good use of the spear shaft. He could issue any kind of energy from the tip of the shaft so that whenever it was touched by the staff of another person, the other staff had it and its wielder would be thrown far back. He could knock a person out with any part of his body and could release all his energy into the moment of a laugh or shout. So he could knock a person out with any part of his body. That sounds pretty good. That's that Tai Chi use of, all four directions. Use your shoulder, elbow, head, fist, kick, everything.
Yeah, and I find the interesting thing in that to me is that, he taught 3 different frames, right? So you do hear people say, oh, we do the medium frame, or we do the large frame, all coming from him.
Same, yeah.
Right. So that,
he's not known for that lower, the smaller frame, but no. I imagine it's in his family, so he must have had it.
Yeah, right. I mean, he's generally sort of credited for the medium, quote unquote, frame, right? And that it's not the super low giant one, and it's not the upright little one. It's somewhere in the middle, and that that's more or less what Yang Cheng Fu popularized, is that sort of medium frame.
So a little bit more about him. He was an expert at shooting spherical iron pellets, and by hand he could fling them and kill birds with every throw. Even more mysterious was his ability to hold a sparrow in his palm without letting it fly away. Now, you've heard this story many a time.
Right.
A bird about to take off must first press downward with its claws and find a firm foothold on which to exert energy and raise its body aloft. But Jianho could interpret the sinking energy of the bird's 2 claws. As the bird pushed downward, he would relax and neutralize, so the sparrow, unable to avail itself of a foothold, could not fly away. From this, we can see that his clever, subtle, and ingenious use of interpreting and neutralizing energy was such that no one else could even approach his level. When he was advanced in years, he often practiced to develop his intrinsic energy lying in bed, fully clothed. His servants often heard a strange shaking sound at night emanating from his room where he was sleeping. And it said, okay, so that's that story. So that's the bird story is Yang Jianho.
Right.
Yeah, his interpreting and neutralizing was so good, whereas Banho was known for his more violent attacking energies.
Crush the bird.
He could crush the bird with one grip. He died a peaceful death without sickness or calamity. A few hours before he died, he received a premonition of his impending death in a dream. He summoned all of his family members and disciples to assemble before him and gave his final instructions to them one by one. After bathing and changing his clothing, he died with a smiling face. So he had some sons.
Nice.
He had his son, Yang Shaoho. His second son died young, and his third son was Yang Chengfu. So again, this third generation of the Yang family, there's kind of a yin and a yang. There's Yang Shaoho, who's known for being the tougher fighter like his uncle.
Right.
And there's Yang Chengfu, who's known for being more mellow like his dad, Yang Jianho.
Right. Sort of mirrors the previous generation.
Right. Yeah. It's like there's a yin and yang in each generation. So Yang Shaoho is interesting. The picture of him, there is an old, what would you say, the portrait picture of him where he looks in his elder years and he's still got a little wild-eyed sort of look to him. He was born in 1862. He studied Tai Chi Chuan from the age of 7. His disposition was stubborn and unyielding. He enjoyed knocking down his opponents and made good use of freehand techniques, very much like his uncle, whose characteristics he inherited. His postures were low and brisk, his movements swift and powerful. In every move, he sought compactness. So that's interesting. He sought compactness, like that's that sort of small frame idea that I think we were seeing from Yang Jianho.
Right.
Not like extension, but compactness. That's what I think they're talking about there, I'd say. So, when he taught others, he adopted the same style. As soon as he stretched out his hand, he would attack. The students, for the most part, could not stand it, so few remained to learn from him. He had profound skill in borrowing energy, sudden energy, intercepting energy, and hurling aloft energy. It is to be regretted that he did not wish to transmit his art to many students, so those who know it are now very scarce. and he died in 1930. So yeah, that's interesting. I like that. As soon as he stretched out his hand, he would attack. So he didn't wait for someone to come in and use Tai Chi defensively. Because a lot of times you use Pong or something to like absorb an attack before you go on the offensive. But like his uncle, he's the minute he reached out, he's just pounding you like.
I mean, I think this is one of the single biggest misconceptions about Tai Chi is that you don't strike first. Right? If you just keep backing up, you don't want to fight. Right? At some point, you want to attack, and you know yeah, I think that's just something that because people got in their head because of push hands or something. But yeah, I mean, when you're really using,
I mean, it's nice when you can borrow somebody's attack and shove it back in their face.
Sure,
so that makes sense.
But I mean, but if you're thinking, I mean, that's more. Again, this is the idea of like, you know, self-defense, right? I mean, most people who do martial arts in the last 120 years or so have been doing it for the idea of self-defense, that your primary attack thing isn't, you're going to attack another nation. You're not going to use martial arts, right? So like, the notion of waiting for the other guy to strike first is kind of a civility thing, right? Because you don't just go around attacking people. But once you've, like made that decision to do it, if you have an opening, you do it, you don't wait, right? If you don't have an opening, then you have to do the thing of letting the other guy strike first. But if the hole is there, the mosquito's going to go through it, right?
Makes sense.
So I just think this is one of those things that Tai Chi can be just as aggressive, as any other martial art in terms of when you strike. It doesn't have to wait for the
So I mean, when I think of using Bhagwata strike, I would like use a drilling fist or palm and just like shoot a stab towards their face, sort of a fake a provoking attack. What do you do in Tai Chi?
I mean, first time I met Bob Tangora, he did a G, but he made a fist and punched me right in the chin. I was like, whoa, what? I was like, this is Tai Chi? What the hell?
That's
that. Yeah, I mean,
meet Bob.
Yeah, it's like, oh, okay, but
Bob did not mind hurting you a little bit.
No, I mean, he's where I think, got over that idea that you have to wait, it was like, because he was, he had that, I mean, it was more push hands, but
totally,
that the second you touch the guy, he was on, he had you, and Bruce is the same way.
Yeah.
He's not waiting for you to push him all the way back and, no, it's like the minute you got any sort of contact, at least his mind is in your center, and you're stuck because it's like, this guy's already in my juju, and at least in the martial art world, what you would consider fame. You're not going to do it by hurting every person that comes across.
Right.
You got to grow your business, your brand, and you got to have people, learn from you for a long time and want.
Ideally, you're nice to your students and mean to your enemies. I mean, finally, Yang Zhenhe's third son, after the middle son died young, was Yang Chengfu, the famous perpetrator of Tai Chi that we know nowadays. He was born in 1883. His disposition was mild. As a child, he showed no great inclination to study Tai Chi, but at the age of 20, he began studying with his father. During his father's lifetime, he did not pursue his studies with diligence, and his comprehension of the principles remained incomplete and imperfect. After his father's death, he suddenly awakened to his responsibility and began to practice assiduously, night and day. Eventually, he gained a far-reaching reputation. He acquired all of the arts of Tai Chi, mostly from study on his own. Indeed, he was a marvelously gifted genius. Had he been able to apply his entire mind to study while his father was alive, his achievement would not have fallen short of his grandfather's. His body was stalwart and his stature gigantic. He often appeared as soft as cotton externally, but internally he was strong as iron. His withdraw attack energy and receiving energy were both superb. In contrast to his elder brother, he taught most of his students the higher postures so that their movements would be wide open and stretched. Because of his mild disposition, many students came to him to learn. His reputation spread north and south throughout the country. He died in 1936.
Right. Well, there's the whole thing about the larger frame, right? And the more open postures and all that.
Right. All right, moving on. We're going to look at the 8 energies of Tai Chi as described here in The Power of Internal Martial Arts and Chi by BK Frantzis. And so we looked at the first 4 energies. So now we're in the energy number 5, pull down, known as Tsai. So here's how he describes it. This movement simultaneously combines the 2 primary yin energies of roll back and push downward in an obvious, hidden, and embedded ways to many postures. Pull down, for example, fuses these energies together, moving in the same direction. You simultaneously yield to or absorb an attacking man's force while moving him downward gradually or suddenly. The sudden variety is sometimes used to cause an attacker to fall to the ground, suffer whiplash, or dislocate a joint. This movement is most obviously seen in the postures pull down, between play the lute and shoulder stroke, just before a white crane spreads its wings, and in needle to the bottom of the sea. So yeah, interesting. So like when you complete the first 4 energies of Tai Chi, now there's the second group, the second 4 energies 5 through 8, and they're more like on a diagonal or a combinations rather than those first 4 primary energies. Then these ones become more they're blendings kind of, and they're taught in the set Da Lu, where you pull each other back and forth with these.
I mean, when I think of pull down, I think of it was one of the first times I met you was at the fighting applications workshop.
And
Bruce, pulled down on your arm and snapped your neck back, and I was just like, "Oh, yikes!"
Yeah, I was rolling with it. That was sweet.
I mean, that's the classic sort of, that is one of those things where you're pulling one hand down as you punch them in the face kind of thing, that snaps their neck. And
but he's got roll down and push down at the same time. Roll back and push downward combined is how he describes it. So it's a downward motion and a pulling.
So it's, well, usually the way it is that so one hand is coming in and one is going down, right? So the one that's going, like if you're doing the needle at sea bottom, right? The one on top is the rollback, and the one on that's stabbing down is the on, right? So
sometimes we call it plucking, Tsai, plucking.
I actually like plucking better, because to me it's
that yanking effect kind of.
Well, I think of it as just like you see I don't know why this is the thing that pops into my head, but a beet growing out of the ground, right? And rather than like just trying to like pull on it, you kind of pluck it,
yank it,
you give it a little, you push down on the ground with the other hand and you snap it back up, right? You kind of like you have a push and a pull, or at the same time.
Yeah, you can pluck an orange out of a tree. You got to like push against the tree and kind of pop it off.
I think that's kind of how I think this, that it's got 2 directions, not just one. I mean, that's really what it is, right? The first 4 are single directions, and now you're getting into combining directions, right? So you're combining the 2 yin ones here and the 2 yang ones in the next one.
Well, speaking of split, why don't we move on to Lieh, split, or otherwise known as rending. Split is the opposite of pull down, Tsai. It combines the 2 primary yang energies of ward off and press forward. In this move, which requires turning the waist, the 2 yang energies do not join together, but rather form a common point of origin and move apart in opposite directions. This creates a tremendous release of energy, just like a bomb exploding. So that's interesting. That's rather than pulling in and down, this one's, So the first one combines 2 energies. This one combines 2 energies.
Right, but these are the yang ones. So instead of going in and down, it's going up and out.
Right. So split can be, and they're in 2 things are going apart from the same common point of origin. Like Jie comes together G, I'm sorry. G comes together from 2 points like that Star Wars analogy. This one, there are two parts going apart like a bomb exploding. So he says split can be done two ways. Your hands and arms could be moving in opposite directions, or one hand can remain fixed in space while the other pulls in the opposite direction. Split can be performed either forwards, backwards, sidewards, or up and down. You can be combining two ward offs, two press forwards, or a combination of one press forward and one ward off. This method can be seen externally in the separating hands of the moves. White crane spreads its wings, fan through the back, and single whip. And I'd also say a diagonal flying, right? Like that seems to be even more so.
Featuring is also it's what it's called, split, right?
Splitting. Another word for it is rending that we've seen before. So that's like tearing something in half, kind of.
Like ripping a sheet of paper, basically.
Ripping, rending, grasp. You're sort of grasping it and tearing it with rending.
So I mean, if you think about tearing a sheet of paper, right, you can pull both hands apart. That's the one method, or you can hold with one hand and pull with the other.
Right.
So fan through the back is holding with one.
True, huh? And then you pull the other one.
So is single whip, right? Where
and white crane too, in Wu style, you press one hand down, then the other one rises up. Yeah, so I mean that's a favorite, like diagonal flying. Basically, it's a classic type of throw in a lot of martial arts where you capture their arm and then you sweep over the top and do a hip throw, like you topple them over your leg, kind of.
It's a shingy snake. Chicken has that same motion.
Splitting, yeah. Yeah, in Aikido they call it hip throw.
Snake is the one because it has both. It has the pull down and the split, right? So
yeah, you pull down, then you split. Yeah.
That's why I said most of the time I think of them as something that you do one then the other.
Coincidentally, that's just what we were saying about the first four, where they all just flow into each other. Similarly here, pull down and split flow into each other. That's why they're always paired together for sure. Now let's look at the final two energies of Tai Chi here. Zhou, elbow stroke, and Kao, shoulder stroke. Both elbow stroke and shoulder stroke are directly related to and commingled within the methodology of the snake and the crane in Tai Chi. So he talks about the legend of the snake and the crane fighting.
The first six are hand methods, things you do with your arms. The last two are things you do with your body.
That makes sense. So that's that snake effect.
Shoulder is referring to that sort of rolling, undulating thing you're talking about. And elbow is referring to the ability to fold your limbs, fold your joints.
Folding.
So, your body can't fold, right? But it can roll. It can squish. Your bones in your arm can't squish, but your joints can roll, can make circles and can fold, right?
So just to finish the thing about folding, he says, so now on an offensive way, a shoulder technique completing becomes an elbow technique, which becomes a forearm blow, which becomes an open or closed wrist and or hand strike, which finally becomes a finger thrust that finishes the opponent.
Yeah.
If one technique is insufficient, you switch to the next. All right. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Hey, folks. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Just a reminder, check out our Instagram for images to go along with the episodes. And check out the Patreon for the extended episodes and bonus content. Okay, thanks for listening and take care of yourselves and be well.